Hey, what up world? This is your boy, The Made Man. Welcome to Diary of a Made Man, the show where we teach you how to hack the system and make more money, more money, more money. All right, today's topic is how to become a better public speaker. Let's get into it. All right, so everybody wants to be a public speaker. Maybe you have doubts about how great of a speaker you are. Maybe people tell you aren't that great of a speaker. But the thing is, not everybody is born a natural. Most people out there, especially the great public speakers, become great public speakers by practice. They hammer away at practice, 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 practice. So in this guide, we're going to break down how to become a better public speaker through practice. Why do people fear public speaking? Everybody fears public speaking on some level. Even the world-class public speakers have some fear of public speaking. Even myself have a public speaking fear. As a matter of fact, I was an introvert. I'm still an introvert. That's why I'm here filming in my basement. Jokes aside anyway, right? But the way I became a better public speaker was practice, practice, practice. But let's first go back and talk about the science of why we have fear when it comes to speaking and public speaking. This fear is in a way called social anxiety or social conditioning. Did you know that public speaking is the biggest fear in the world? More people fear public speaking than death itself. Yeah, death itself. Can you believe that? Right? Why is that? Right? Well, if you go all the way back in the caveman days, right? If you go back all the way to evolution, people feared public speaking because they wanted to belong to a tribe, right? As cavemen, we belonged in a tribe. And fear was a response our bodies developed as a way to warn us when we're on the verge of death, on the brink of death, right? So for example, if you did something fearful, right? Something without really having that feeling of fear, you could die. So fear was a response, right? Our body developed or evolved to warn us and guide us. And one of those responses, or one of those warning signs, was fear of being a social outcast, right? Imagine you're out there, you're in a tribe, right? And you do something and the tribe kicks you out, right? Back then, we didn't have technology, we didn't have all these innovations, right? You'd be out there on your own, having to fend off, I don't know, dinosaurs, lions, all this crazy stuff, right? So we wanted to belong to part of a group, part of a tribe, right? So as a way of helping us evolve and be part of a tribe, we had social conditioning, right? Our bodies would tell us, okay, don't do anything that's too crazy. Don't do anything that's too weird, right? All this stuff, all this social conditioning helps us stay aligned with the tribe and the group. As a result, we're not outcast from the group. Right? This was perfect for evolving, right? For building relationships, getting kids, finding a mate, all this stuff, right? But sometimes it can hinder us, right? Sometimes all that evolution we have that warns us when we're in fear, right? That fight or flight response can hurt us sometimes. And one of those examples is public speaking. So most people who have a fear of public speaking, when they speak, right? Let's say it's a presentation for work, presentation for school, they're standing up there, right? And the body has two ways of going about it. Either they fight, right? They stay there and they fight the response, or they take flight, right? So this is why public speaking is one of the biggest fears in the world. So how do we take care of this fear? How do we get over it, right? One of the ways I do this is, there are two ways to channel your energy, right? You're out there, you have butterflies, you're nervous, you're shaking, right? You can take that energy and take flight, kind of retreat inwards, become shy, anxious, right? Or you can channel that energy to have an to be energized during your speech, to have passion, energy, right? You keep hearing the term passion. Where does passion come from? Passion comes when somebody channels that energy, right? That nervous energy, and they fight with it. As opposed to taking flight, they fight with that energy. That's how you get that energy, right? So I know me, I'm very laid back in life, right? I'm not this animated. I'm not even this animated most of the time, right? But when I'm doing a speech, it's almost like kind of like a step into character, right? And all that energy, I've learned to channel that energy to use it in my speech. For example, with my body language, with my gestures, with my passion, with my tonality, right? So in this guide, we'll break this down and show you how to channel all that energy. But to kind of go back to the earlier point I made, fear comes from social conditioning and from people wanting to belong and being afraid of social rejection, right? So once we understand where that fear comes from, we can then use that fear and turn it into an advantage. All right, so we know where fear comes from. We know the evolution, the science. But so what? How is that gonna help me today, right? You're probably wondering. Well, now that we know the why it's happening, right? I mentioned earlier, you can overcome it by different ways, right? I mentioned how I personally overcome fear by channeling that nervous energy into passion, into energy, right? But one different way of getting over that fear, right? Once you know that you're afraid of social rejection, you're afraid of what people think about you, you basically have to learn to not care what people think about you, right? You almost have to become almost immune to what people think. You don't care about people's feelings, right? Some people have different ways of doing this. Some people say, imagine everybody's naked, imagine people are beneath you, whatever, right? But once you know where that fear is coming from, you have to turn that into confidence by not caring what anybody thinks. And the way you do this is there are lots of different exercises. I know me personally, when I was going through this, getting over public speaking, practice, right? Speak everywhere you can. At your church, at work, at school, volunteer. But most importantly, don't care what anybody thinks about you. Go out there and fail. Failure is good. Once you develop this notion or this belief of not caring what people think about you, it will make your public speaking a lot better, a lot more efficient, more energized. Why would anybody want to be a good public speaker? One of the first reasons is it advances your career. I know myself, I never really thought of myself as a public speaker, but just by becoming a better public speaker, practicing, doing things like Toastmasters, other public speaking groups, as I became a better speaker, windows opened to me that I didn't really have access to. I got better jobs, made more money by becoming a better public speaker. Public speaking will advance your career faster than anything. And one of the reasons I learned this actually was back in college. So I'll take you back to undergrad where I majored in computer engineering, right? So as an engineer, we have this thing called a senior design project, a capstone project, right? And I wasn't the smartest kid in the class. I was pretty lazy, right? I had that hacker mentality, waiting the last minute to do things because I figured, hey, I hacked the system, right? So anyway, for my senior design project, I slacked off the entire year. Didn't really do much. Waited the last week to do my project, like my presentation, my write-up, all that stuff, right? But there were these A+ students, these A students, you know, all those kids that make all the good grades in engineering class, right? These kids were busting their butt the whole year, doing the best work. I'm just there slacking, not really doing much, right? But comes to the last day of our capstone class, we had to present a project, right? Me, the person who didn't really do much, ended up doing pretty well compared to other people who did fantastic, but the reason they did badly was because they had bad presentations, right? I recall specifically, right, one time I was walking past class as people were doing presentations, right, because everybody was in the class by themselves, and I saw this kid who was doing a presentation in front of like 3 or 4 professors, right? This guy was great. He had been busting his tail the whole year, had an amazing project, but just by seeing the first 10 seconds of his presentation, I knew he bombed the presentation. Like, that's how serious public speaking is, right? So why do I say I knew he bombed the presentation? Because he was nervous, he was moving like this, his hands were in his pockets, in the back of his pockets, moving like this, right? And I was like, doesn't matter if inside your head you know what you're talking about, if you're like A+ inside here. What matters is the presentation, right? It's all marketing, man, right? So how do you market yourself during your speech? Do you seem confident? Do you stand with your feet wide apart, right? Do you talk like you know what you're talking about? Or do you go inside your shell, get nervous, right? And don't really know what to say, right? Because the way you start is the way you finish. That was something I learned very quickly when it comes to public speaking, right? And body language is everything. I'll cover this later, right? But just by seeing this guy's body language, I knew he bombed it, right? So then I go in there, right? And I don't really know what I'm talking about at all. But I go in there and I kill it. I crushed the presentation, right? Not because I knew what I was talking about, but because I knew public speaking and I had a great skill from practicing public speaking. To a point that one of my professors came to me and said, Ian, do you know what? The whole year you didn't really have that great of a senior design project. As a matter of fact, it was pretty mediocre. But you had the best presentation. And you should go to sales, right? And from there, I kind of learned, hey, you know what? I'm really good at selling things and selling myself, right? Which is kind of a byproduct of becoming a great public speaker, to a point that now I ended up becoming a sales engineer, ended up becoming a client-facing consultant for companies like Deloitte, worked for sales at IBM, right? And now I'm making 6 figures off the skill set that I learned, right? So public speaking, refining the skill, can open up windows and advance your career. The second reason public speaking is great is public speaking helps you with networking and business, right? So the reason I learned public speaking was I was an entrepreneur and I had to sell my business. I had to pitch to investors, from angel investors to venture capitalists, right? Trying to sell them on my idea. I went and did different pitch competitions, talking on panels, pitching my idea, right? I had to learn to sell my idea, right? As a result, it was like sink or swim. Learn to speak publicly, get over this fear, or never really go anywhere or take my company anywhere, right? So I went out there, right, and I just, repetition, right? It was a straight numbers game. As a result, I was able to meet a lot more people, make a lot more connections, right? This is why public speaking is very vital and why lots of entrepreneurs and business people love public speaking. Public speaking helps with self-promotion. Everybody sells themselves. Doesn't matter whether you're in sales or not in sales. Doesn't matter whether you're an engineer, a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer. Everybody has to sell themselves at some point in life, right? Doesn't matter what business you're in, you are selling yourself. If you're going out there for a job interview, guess what? You're selling yourself. If you're going out there trying to raise capital, guess what? You're selling yourself, right? All the time, you have to go out there and show the value in yourself, appear confident, and get people to buy into you as a person. So it doesn't matter what kind of line of work you're in, public speaking will make you a better presenter by learning to sell yourself, which leads to making more money. All right, so I'm gonna go through some tips and some guidelines on how to become a better public speaker. Let's get into it. 1, plan your speech accordingly. Plan your speech. Perfect practice. Practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect, right? So what does that mean? When you're crafting a speech, whether you're doing a sermon, whether you're pitching to investors, for class, for work, doesn't matter, clients, right? Know your audience. If you're talking to the wrong people, you will fall flat on your face, right? You have to cater your presentation, your speech, your talk to the audience you're talking to. Are you talking to executives? Are you talking to college students, right? Find out what moves them, what drives them. What needs do they have? What are you trying to solve, right? And cater to them. So plan accordingly. 2, never read your speech. This one irks me, oh my God, you have no idea, right? Anybody who reads their speech, they just kill their speech. That's kind of like self-sabotage, that's suicide. If you want to become a great public speaker, never ever read your speech. I mean, that's the holy grail right there, right? If you just don't do that, your speaking game goes to the next level like tenfold, straight off the bat, right? You have people who go out there, they have notes, they're reading the speech on their phone, right? Or even worse, a paper, right? Never, ever, ever do that. A second thing is, right, if you're talking and you have a podium, never speak on a podium, right? Why is that, right? It goes down to body language and eye contact, right? Body language is everything, right? The reason I advise never to ever read your speech is because when you're busy doing this, you're not making eye contact with the people you're talking to. Eye contact is so powerful, right? Eye contact is the holy grail to public speaking, right? Write that down. Let me say that again. Eye contact is the holy grail to public speaking, right? So If you busy looking at your notes like this, doesn't go anywhere, right? You should either create an outline or memorize the notes, right? But I don't really like memorizing things, right? So I would say create an outline, right? And go out there and speak to people and make eye contact, right? Because the other guy who's doing the same speech looking at notes won't be as charismatic, won't be as engaging as the person who's making eye contact with you, looking straight into your soul. That's the power of public speaking, right? And the other reason I say don't talk behind a podium, right? Because there's something called presence in public speaking, right? Presence is the aura you have, the energy you're vibrating at, right? So if you have a podium, you're putting a shield between you, the speaker, and your audience, right? So this is why great public speakers move away from the podium and move closer to their audience, right? Because they're taking away that shield. They're kind of making themselves vulnerable, right? Not only that, they use up the entire stage, right? If you walk around the stage, right, as opposed to staying in one location, it gives you a presence, right? Creates that aura that you own the room. Yeah, so those two key things are very vital. That's why I advise you should follow them. 3, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. This is the holy grail of public speaking as well, right? What does that mean? You've probably heard the numbers such as 93% of communication is nonverbal. What does that mean? That means the words I'm saying right now don't mean squat. They don't mean anything at all. Right? It's the nonverbal, my body language, the gestures I'm making, the confidence I'm presenting, the aura, the presence, right? All this is nonverbal communication, right? That's body language. And the other part of the nonverbal communication is tonality. Right? The inflections in your voice, the pitch, right? For example, am I talking very, 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 very fast? Or am I talking very slow to emphasize something in a speech and give that added effect, right? These two things combined matter a lot more than the words that you're actually saying, right? This is why politicians are very great public speakers, to a point where they can sell literally anything, right? They can be the worst public speakers out there, right? But because they understand these different things such as nonverbals like body language, you notice the whole time during the speech, I'm gesturing, I'm moving around, right? This keeps you engaged. This keeps you from falling asleep, right? This is how you don't become a boring speaker, right? But it's not just all over the place type of gesturing, right? It all has a purpose, right? To reinforce. And notice that when I gesture, right? I'm gesturing in an open stance as opposed to a closed stance. Right? You never want to be closed off when doing a speech, right? Such as feet together or doing like this, right? People who don't do anything like this, right? When you gesture, you want to present that you're open to the world, right? This is why people say stand feet apart, presents confidence. When you gesture like this, right? You don't really point, right? This is why people do this as opposed to pointing, right? All these different things are different ways to gesture when giving a speech. Right? And going back to the principle, right? Only 7% of your words actually matter. Right? This is why Donald Trump is a great public speaker and salesman, right? People say, oh, he's saying all this stuff. It doesn't matter. He's doing the body language. Same thing with Obama. Yes, we can. Hope, right? Like, anyway, I'll talk about this when I get to emotions as well, right? But for now, just remember that body language, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. 4, appeal to your audience's emotions and not their logic. One shameless hack or truth that people don't really know is that people aren't really logical. As a matter of fact, if you're presenting to somebody, and especially if you're trying to persuade them or convince them, cater to their emotions and not their logic. Because people get won over by their emotions, then rationalize and justify it based on their logic, right? I mean, go straight to politics, right? People will say, oh, I love this candidate because of X, Y, and Z. But if you really quiz them on the candidate's policies, they would totally disagree with the candidate's policies. They just love his public speaking skills, the way he speaks to them, the emotions he elicits out of them. Right? This is what makes him a great public speaker. as a result, he's able to persuade and convince his audience, his demographic, right? Hope, yes we can. I have a dream, right? It's gonna be huge, right? All these different speakers, right? From Trump to Obama to Martin Luther King, right? They're all using public speaking skills. It's not really the logic, right? Especially with Trump, it's not really the logic at all, right? It's all straight emotions, right? He's winning people's emotions. He's speaking to their emotions. He's speaking to them on a totally different wavelength that gets them to buy in. All right, so we talked a lot about public speaking, becoming a better speaker, but how do you practice being a better speaker, right? So write this down right now. This is very, very vital, right? Practice doesn't make perfect. Let me say that again. Practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect, right? So what is perfect practice? That means you have to practice like it's the World Series, man. Practice like it's the Super Bowl. Don't just go out there and do all this random stuff, right? Have a method to your practice. Perfect practice makes perfect. One of the ways to do perfect practice is to rely on muscle memory. This is something I love a lot. Muscle memory is basically saying that you practice something so much, so often, so hard, you basically go 100 on it, right? To a point that your muscles recall everything, right? And the best way to summarize muscle memory, whenever I practice a speech, right? If it's like a big speech, I ask myself, right? If somebody were to wake me up in the middle of my sleep and I had to deliver the speech, freestyle off the top of the dome, no paper, no outline, no nothing, can I kill it? Can I crush it? Can I hit a home run, right? That's muscle memory. You want to practice to a point where somebody will wake you from your sleep, right? You're sleeping like this, you wake up, right? Get on the stage and you just kill the speech, right? That's the level of perfect practice you want to be on. And I'll talk to you and show you how you can do that. Step 1, practice by improvising. The first thing I always do when I practice a speech is I wing it. I practice winging my speech. I practice freestyling it. What does that mean? All right, so for example, let's say the topic is do a speech about, let's say it's a graduation speech, right, for college, right? Let's say go out there and have to do a 20-minute speech to inspire college students on graduation, on life after graduation, right? Let's say that's the topic of the speech, right? Okay, I tell myself, all right, I get a timer out, right? Get my phone out, put it on 20 minutes, and I just go. I improvise, I do the speech right there and then. But I record it. Either I'll film myself with a camera or I get an audio recorder and I practice my speech for 20 minutes, right? Uninterrupted. Doesn't matter if I mess up, if I stumble, if I fall. I keep on going and power through, soldier through those 20 minutes, right? Improvising that same speech. Once I'm done, I go back and I listen to that speech if it's an audio recording. I watch that video if it's a video recording, right? And I see how I performed improvising that speech without any preparation, without any notes, without any outline. This is very vital because of 2 reasons, right? First of all, it makes you comfortable with the unknown. One of the reasons people fear public speaking is because they fear the unknown. They're uncomfortable being uncomfortable, right? By practicing being uncomfortable, you become comfortable, right? That's a mind trip, right? It's crazy like that, right? Let me say that again. People are afraid of public speaking because they're uncomfortable of the unknown and they're uncomfortable being uncomfortable. By practicing this, it makes you more confident in your speech because we're practicing it without any preparation, right? Once you do that, you can do that a couple of times, right? The first time, you also realize something even better, right? This is why I love improvising a speech, because during those 20 minutes, things will come to you, ideas will come to you that you would never have thought if you sat down and tried to script that speech. Ideas that are even better than you just sitting down and scripting it, right? You'll find during that entire process, that fluid dance of you during the speech, ideas come to you and other new inspirations come to you, and you can then take back and put into your speech and get an even better speech. Step 2. Now that you've practiced your speech by improvising it, now actually sit down, take all the different things you liked during that improvisation stage, take out the things you didn't like, and now create an outline of your speech. Don't write a script verbatim. That will lead to being a horrible public speaker, right? You always want to be a great public speaker by creating an outline of your speech, just bullet points of your speech, right? Because unless you have a teleprompter, it makes no sense to try to memorize the speech, because don't forget that eye contact is vital, right? So make an outline of the speech, but to make it easier to remember, create acronyms to make it easier for you, right? What does that mean, right? So for example, if this speech is about graduation, right? Let's say there are 5 topics I want to speak on. I can word them where the first letter, the first acronym, right, could be something such as, let's say it's called Made Man, right? Let's say the acronym spells Made Man, right? So maybe the first topic starts with an M. So when I go on stage, okay, the first topic is about my mom, right? Let me talk about my mom, how she inspired me to be a great student, to graduate, to go out there and work hard. The second acronym is A. I want to talk about aspiring to greatness, right? Then let's say the next acronym is D. Then we talk about dealing with the devil you know, right? Things that try to hold you down, haters, right? So you're basically creating acronyms, right? That way, right? So going back to the whole perfect practice, if somebody wakes you in the middle of your speech and says, okay, do this graduation speech right now, 3 a.m. in the morning, in a live audience, in a stadium, go, right? How do you recall all that? If you have the notes, the script, you're like, oh, I don't have my script, I don't have my notes. But if you got the acronym, all you got to think, Made Man, right? You go up there, Made Man. What's the first letter in Made Man? What's the first word in Made Man? Mom. Talk about your mom. Then you have that story about your mom, right? You practice that story, you have that muscle memory, so it comes natural. Step 3. All right, so you've practiced improvising your speech. You've practiced your speech with an outline, right? Now the entire time throughout this process, you're filming this with a video recorder, a camera, audio recorder, and you're going back and getting feedback, right? Finding out what you did well on, what you did bad on, and getting better. So let's say you've done this about 5 or 6 times. Now what do? Step 3, you practice the same speech. This time, you improvise it again. So you get those outlines you had, right? And you toss them out the window, right? Then you practice improvising the same speech again, kind of like step 1. But this time you see that it's totally different. This time you're comfortable. You're comfortable with the unknown. You're comfortable not knowing what to say, right? But reason being, because you have muscle memory, right? Whenever you kind of forget your place, you have that muscle memory telling you, yeah, so I was talking about this, I was talking about that, right? You have the gestures down, right? And this is vital, right? Because now, once you've internalized the outline of your speech, you can now go back to practicing the nonverbals, which is even vital, right? I mentioned how vital this is, right? Now you can practice the nonverbals. You don't have to worry about thinking about your speech because you've already internalized it. Now you can worry about how are you going to add different inflections? How are you going to fluctuate your tonality, your pitch? Do you rise it high? Do you go low to emphasize a different part of your speech? Right? Do you gesture to go with that pitch fluctuation? Right? Do you move back? Do you move in? Right? You can now start to practice these nonverbals because you aren't really concerned about the internal dialogue because you've internalized it. Muscle memory. Perfect practice makes perfect. Right? So those are the 3 ways to become a better public speaker using muscle memory. Constantly improve yourself. I'll say it again and I'll keep on saying it. Perfect practice makes perfect, right? Use muscle memory to become a better public speaker, right? Get feedback and make sure you get feedback, people. Every single time you practice, use a video recorder, a camera, or audio recorder. I mean, don't tell me you don't have one, right? Nowadays, every single smartphone comes with a voice recording app. That's what I use typically when I'm practicing, right? I just pull up my phone, open up the voice recorder app and start recording my audio, then go back and see how I'm sounding, right? So always make sure you're getting some kind of constructive feedback, right? Even if you have to do it by yourself, right? Make sure you do that. All right, let's say you have a speech coming up for work, with a client, for school, doesn't matter, right? Maybe you're running for president, you know? Who knows, right? How do you prepare for the speech? You want to do three things, right? The first thing is practice the environment, right? What does that mean? If you're going to be speaking to a large audience, when you're practicing your speech, picture a large audience, right? If you're going to be in a stadium, picture you're in a stadium. If you're going to be in an office, envision you're in an office. Walk around like you're in an office. If you have to be restricted to a podium, then practice as if you're in a podium, right? So whatever your environment is, practice that environment. You dig? 2, warm up your body with exercises, right? Before any big speech, kind of like any sport, right? Before you go out there to play basketball, you have shoot around, right? You have to stretch, warm up, right? Same thing with speeches. People don't really realize this, right? Because it's about energy. It's about that energy you have prior to any speech. So you want to get that energy ready before the speech by practicing and doing different types of exercises, right? So one exercise that I love doing before any speech, I call this the ADD drill, right? It sounds the way it sounds, right? ADD drill. It's basically like this. You get a random topic and you have to talk about that topic for a certain amount of time. Freestyle, improvising, without any preparation, non-stop, right? So for example, the topic could be something such as talk about apples, right? For 15 minutes, right? So what is the purpose of that, right? So let me just do it right now, right? Okay, I'll do it right now. I'll go through the ADD drill. So Ian, talk about apples. Oh my God, I love apples, dude. I was walking down the street this one time and this apple dropped in my head, right? And I picked it up, I'm like, a green apple? How lucky is that? Right, so I picked up the apple and I had a bite. And oh my God, it was so juicy. You have no idea how juicy this apple was. But do you know why it was juicy? Because it took me back to my childhood. As a kid, I used to walk down the road with my uncle and we would go down to this apple tree and we'll sit down by the apple tree, talk for hours and hours about his life. He told me stories about his childhood, right? So this apple hitting me on the head brought me back to my childhood. I loved my childhood as a kid. I was born in Africa. I had dreams of coming to America, right? So anyway, do you see what just happened there, right? I began by talking about an apple, but I was able to transition from the apple to a totally different topic, right? And I kept on talking about that topic that I know about. I mean, everything in that story was made up, but you get the idea there, right? I was able to transition, right? So that exercise is great for warming up how to transition from any topic to any topic. And more specifically, it helps with being able to get the most boring topic in the world and make it sound exciting, enticing, persuasive, right? I was just talking about apples, right? But I try to make it seem exciting, right? Because here's the magic bullet right here, right? Write this down, right? If you can talk about anything in the world, any random topic, and make it sound exciting, you have mastered public speaking. What does that mean, right? Let me say it again. If you can get any random topic in the world and make that topic sound exciting, you could be talking about the air. You could be talking about watching paint dry, right? But if you make it seem like the best thing in the world, right? You become a better public speaker because you realize public speaking, right? Going back to what I said earlier, it's not about what you say, it's how you say it, right? So by picking a random topic, you're practicing how you say it, right? Because when I was talking about apples, it was all about me gesturing and acting that out, right? The apple dropped in my head, I had to pick it up, it took me back to my childhood. I'm basically kind of like how a monkey swings from one monkey branch to the other monkey branch, right? I'm basically jumping from one topic to the next topic to the next topic, right? I'm learning how to connect the dots, right? A second exercise I love, right, is basically getting one totally random topic and the second totally random topic and trying to jump from that topic to this topic in 60 seconds, right? So somebody will pick something such as talk about a Mercedes-Benz and going to the moon, right? And you have 60 seconds to transition from this topic to the other topic, right? This is an exercise you can do, right? So there's different things warm you up to get the blood flowing, the blood boiling, right? So when you go out there on stage, you have that mojo, you have that rap, right? It's like you've been in the gym taking jump shots all day, right? So when the time the actual game comes there, right? Whether you're trying to give a speech where it's impromptu or whether you're doing something else, right? Everything is flowing freely, naturally, effortlessly. One of the best ways to practice your craft and become a better public speaker is to join a public speaking group. There are groups out there such as Toastmasters. I did Toastmasters in college, right? And this is perfect because this is probably the biggest public speaking group in the world, right? And they give you feedback. They have a workbook that goes through different types of speeches. You'll practice doing an impromptu speech. You practice doing all kinds of different speeches, right? And everybody there is there to learn and give feedback, right? So I highly suggest taking Toastmaster groups and classes. A second type of group to join for public speaking, which is one that most people aren't really aware about, is taking a situational improv class. Improv classes are a great secret to becoming a better public speaker, right? Because going back to the reason people fear public speaking, they're feared because they're uncomfortable with the unknown, right? They're uncomfortable with the uncomfortable. And situational improv is all about the unknown. It's all about the uncomfortable, getting outside your shell, breaking your shell, right? So situational improv, for those who don't know, it's kind of like Saturday Night Live, right? Imagine you're out there and you're in a group of like 4 people and they say, okay, for 5 or 10 minutes, we'll give you different characters, different roles, and you have to play those roles, right? And go, right? So during this class, they'll teach you different techniques to kind of make things funny, right? To be very quick on your feet, very witty, right? So taking situational improv class is something I highly suggest if you want to become a better public speaker. As a matter of fact, actually, most classes, most programs out there offer free introductory classes. Usually the first class is free as a trial or demo, right? So you can just find one in your local region, go there and try it out one time for free. And it's a very, very great class. All right, so I've given you guys the game on how to become a better public speaker, right? We talked about body language, so just to kind of recap, right? The 3 main things to take away from this video on becoming a better public speaker. 1, eye contact, right? Eye contact. Don't read your speech, right? Reading your speech and looking up is not good, right? Toss that all the way out the window, right? Outline your speech, create acronyms for your speech so you can recall it, right? And 2, perfect practice makes perfect. Practice that outline, right? Practice it the first time by improvising it, practice it the second time with the outline, then practice the third time by improvising it again, right? This makes you comfortable with the unknown, because this is where people get that fear of public speaking. They're uncomfortable with the unknown, and they're also uncomfortable with what people think about them, right? So by internalizing your speech or your outline, right, this allows you to focus on the other things, like body language, which is everything, right? Gesturing and tonality, right? So by practicing all of this, you can become a better public speaker, right? And lastly, join a public speaking group, Toastmasters, situational improv, and become a better speaker that way. So with that being said, this has been a really in-depth video. I hope you guys like it, right? Make sure you subscribe to this video, my channel, my website, right? Hit me up on Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, Diary of a Made Man, diaryofamadman.com. Let me know what you guys think. Holla at me.